G'day everybody and welcome to the StorageCraft webinar hosted by BrightTalk. My name is Carl Thompson. I'm a sales engineer for StorageCraft and currently based in New Zealand, and we have a wide audience range throughout the APAC region. So today we're covering off why it's crucial to back up Office 365 and of course how you can do it with our solutions. This webinar is recorded, so you will all receive a link to the recording. I think it will come out tomorrow. And I will be doing a presentation as well as a live demo today. And if you've got any questions throughout my presentation, please feel free to type them in. I'll probably address them at the end. We do have a Q&A section at the end of the webinar. So if you want or think of any questions, just please feel free to type them as we go along. So the big thing is that software as a service is everywhere. Everyone is moving their workloads into the cloud, and generally they're going into a service. So it's not necessarily picking up our Exchange server that we used to run on-prem and hosting it in the cloud. It's leveraging Office 365 or Google Cloud. And across the range, there's a lot of applications that are now hosted in the cloud. And the key thing is understanding, look, we used to run this on-prem as a software in Windows or however we ran it, but we used to have a backup software there. And now that we've moved into the cloud, we need to understand, should we still be doing this? Is that being taken care of by the cloud provider? And that's really what we're, trying to educate to our partners and customers around what is and isn't protected by doing this. And looking at the market growth, obviously software as a service is becoming such a massive thing. Office Suites is the fastest growing segment. Now this chart is a little bit old. I think it's end of 2017, but this trajectory has effectively stayed the same, where the Office Suites, the email is obviously the biggest, and then the SharePoint and all the components that come together there. But also there's a lot of other applications and company data that's moving into this type of platform. So I'd like to start off with, what is the need to back this stuff up, and what are the sort of key reasons that we should be thinking about? Because as I mentioned earlier, most people believe that their data is protected by the service provider, and you have significant benefits potentially compared to what you used to do on-prem. So again, you might have had an Exchange server, you may have had a cluster, you may have invested in high availability and disaster recovery, but you get a lot of these benefits, geographical redundancy in the cloud. So your uptime, in a lot of these catastrophic type events is very good. But there is still risk of data loss, and as we're so heavily reliant on these services, it is important to understand what these types of things are. And so the first one to talk about is the human factor. You're working on some stuff and you forget to save or you delete it, or the changes haven't been updated. And this is a type of scenario where the service isn't down, but you've lost some data and you need granular recovery. And this becomes a challenge around, do I have appropriate retention? Do I have previous versions? Can I actually get back, some data that I've been working on? And with a cloud backup solution, you can go back and recover an original file or a previous version very quickly. So that's really important. The whole e-discovery aspect of being able to quickly and easily get back the data, regardless of what's actually going on with the source. Another one is obviously hackers, and the big thing here is the move to cloud and software as a service is really driving, this whole bring your own device. So people are bringing in their own personal devices, tablets, laptops, phones. They're going home, they're working in the evening, but it exposes risks. I know in my household, sometimes my kids got my phone, and they might click on something. And all of a sudden, there's a risk there. But, with hackers, it's they're targeting your tenant. It might not even be to do with the device. They might be targeting your office tenant. And, obviously there's a lot of, defense mechanisms with 365. But there's a lot of scenarios where this data's at risk, and they could encrypt your data. And, if that's in your OneDrive or they've got access to your SharePoint, then again, to get that data back could take some time, and that's really what you need to be aware of. So again, with a cloud backup solution, you can very quickly recover files, right before, the issue arises. Another one, an employee leaves, you deactivate their account. How long is Microsoft actually going to retain deleted or data that's not there anymore? And how do we get that stuff back, or how do we quickly search through multiple, previous employees' data to find something that's critical for the business? So again, with a cloud backup solution, we can recover everything, as of a certain date. Being able to search at a granular level is just as important, rather than getting the whole lot back. You just may want to find a specific email. Again, a bit different to someone leaving, but someone that's gone rogue, probably tied into someone leaving, but, someone's, they've gone rogue, they've left, their account wasn't disabled quick enough, and they've gone and deleted a whole lot of, data that they've worked on, or someone else's data. And again, how can we easily and quickly get that back becomes another challenge that we have to ask ourselves, with the built-in solution. And again, if there's a malicious deletion with a cloud backup solution, you can go back in there and restore that data. The misapps, again, there's apps out there that can cause problems or cause rogue, issues with other apps. And again, when you've got these devices that, have got, potentially SharePoint or OneDrive stuff on there, if we're going to, there's a risk there of that data. So having some form of protection that, again, allows us to go back and recover data that's been overwritten is really important. So look, that's something to consider, but also, there are events where things go down, and if it's critical, although a general cloud backup solution isn't necessarily the same as business continuity, it does allow us to access the data, quickly view, recover, download it out of the cloud if we can't even restore it back. So, there's scenarios I know in New Zealand, well, actually, I think it was globally, just the other week, we had an issue with a lot of Microsoft 365 services, going up and down. So again, really important to think about, the worst case scenario, and can we recover that data or get access to important stuff quickly. So some of the things to consider, what you should know about, and I did, mention that Microsoft and a lot of these SaaS provide great high availability infrastructure. They've got platform level redundancy, and they will have backup, but it's about the granularity and, where these issues happen is what retention do we have available, what type of SLA or data recovery support is or isn't included, and what is the process and time, to initiate an e-discovery, to search, to find that stuff. I mean, how easy can we search a whole tenant for an email and then get it back? And what is, the reliability around that? So these are sort of key things to consider. Also, if you cancel your subscription or there's an issue with it renewing, or, a user, again, as we talked about before, what happens? Is that data going to be available? What happens after the 90 days? There's all these sorts of things to think about, and the risk associated with not having a backup solution in place. And really, to validate this, I took a screenshot the other day when I was preparing for this from the Microsoft Online Services Agreement. And under Section 6B, Microsoft actually state, specifically in this red box here, we recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on the services or store using third-party apps and services. So Microsoft actually recommending that you use a third-party service to protect your data. And I think that's, very clear, differentiation of you're getting a solution that's highly available, but backup is another kettle of fish. And as I mentioned at the start, this is something that you used to do when you ran an Exchange server on-prem. It's something that you still need to think about. How do we back this stuff up, and how do we secure it? So that's really important. And I'm not trying to use this as a scare tactic. It's just that we need to be, really clear around understanding, that Microsoft agreement addresses availability, not recoverability of your data. And, Microsoft they create backups for internal use, protecting their infrastructure from critical failure. They're not necessarily protecting your granular data where you've, had one of these issues that's outside, the failure of the infrastructure. So that's really important to understand. And so just to sort of dig in a bit to the StorageCraft solution and what we can do to help with this scenario. So we have a solution called Cloud Backup, a cloud-based solution to back up and recover SaaS data. So at the moment, we're supporting Office 365 and G Suite SaaS, but we're looking at a lot of other products to bring into this. And it protects the data wherever your solutions live off. So really, you can think of this as a cloud-to-cloud solution. So we're going to back up, all of the mail, calendar, contact, OneDrive, SharePoint, and the Teams data. So all of that part of Office 365, and then similar functions with Google G Suite as well. So it's really important to have these backups included. And at a glance, we're backing up 3 times a day. So effectively, when you start and enable the service, we'll do a backup, and it will then run every 8 hours. Again, it's agentless, so you don't need any software on site. You don't need to worry about storage or bandwidth. That is all handled from our cloud. So by default, we'll send the storage into Amazon S3, and we provide that to you as unlimited capacity, unlimited retention. So every backup we take every 8 hours is kept forever. There's no retention on that, so you can always roll back to a previous point in time. And it's all accessible through a self-service portal. So as a partner or as an end-user customer, it's fully multi-tenant, can log in, search, all of their services very quickly to export out of our cloud or restore back into Office 365 or G Suite is very flexible. And we do have an option that instead of using our provided AWS storage, that you could alternatively send it back into Microsoft into your own Azure Blob storage. So obviously that's your storage at that point, you're paying for that. We do sell that at a discounted license rate. So, we're flexible from that perspective as well. So for our region, across Australia, New Zealand, and Asia, all of the backups go to our data center, a Tier 3 data center in Sydney, where we index the backup. We store some metadata that enables us to search and recover very quickly, as you'll see, and then the data is actually stored encrypted in Amazon, so in the Sydney region. So that's the default option for our customers here. So some of the benefits is obviously security and availability. So we're in a safe, accessible 24/7 data. It's stored encrypted and resides in secure storage. We then have the central one-stop management. So in terms of configuration, management, particularly for our partners, we can have all of their different customers' accounts created. It's all multi-tenant. They don't need to log in and out to manage an individual customer, and they can provide customers with access to their accounts. The search is probably the best component of the solution, allowing you to search the whole tenant extremely quickly and granularly recover back anything you need, or obviously do bulk restores or entire user restores if need be. And really the recovery, most people are going to restore back into their Office 365 in their native formats, is very quick and easy to do. If someone leaves, we can restore the data to someone else. It might be the business owner that wants to get some of these files, for example. And then obviously reporting. People need to be sure that the data is getting backed up. We have very extensive audit reports, so you know who's been searching, if they've restored anything, what they've looked at. We've got very good compliant ways for admins to restore data without ever actually looking at it. And again, whatever they do is audited. So we believe that's really important with a solution, that's obviously providing access to a whole tenant like this. So some of the usage scenarios, obviously recovering data after overwrites, deletion, and other problems, recovering after viruses, infections, or ransomware attacks, transferring ownership of data. We might not have access to something and we want to restore it to somebody else, for example. Accessing data when hosted services are down. We talked a little bit about that. Supporting investigation and e-discovery. So again, someone might say, look, we need to look up this contractor or this PO, and extremely quickly we can punch in a search and look across the whole tenant and get access to that very quickly. And this is adding value to your managed services. So if you're out there selling Office 365 or G Suite, this is another service that you can add on and add value and really have it all automated in the cloud for you, which is really nice. And you're effectively replacing value services being migrated into the cloud. So in terms of licensing, you don't have to purchase any licensing. The fees are charged automatically to the MSP for their customers' account usage at the end of the month. So we'll prorate it at the user level, the accounts that are enabled, and each customer account gets one full month at no charge. So effectively, each user that gets added, they'll get at least one full month at no cost. And unlimited storage and retention, as I talked about. So if you're using our default Amazon storage, we provide that to you as unlimited. So there's no need to worry about bandwidth, or cost of storage, which is really nice. So how do we do it? There's effectively two scenarios if you're either a StorageCraft partner or you're an end user customer. So for a partner, they'll log into our partner portal. They'll select the cloud backup option under MSP. They'll create a customer account. And if the customer themselves are going to be setting this up or want access, the partner can go and create them an account to log in. And then either the partner or the customer can go in and add the service. So that's effectively adding in their credentials to 365 or G Suite to set it up and start the backups. If you're an end user customer, obviously you'll need to go through a partner to create you an account. They can provide you with access, and you've got a URL to log into, and you'll have full access to that account to do all the provisioning yourself if you want. But of course, then any search, recovery, auditing, reporting, etc. will all be available to you from that portal. So very, very simple. Now, what I'd like to do is just move into a bit of a demo. So again, if you've got any questions from the presentation that are unanswered, please feel free to type them in as we go. And what I'll do now is we'll just quickly jump into a live demo, and then I'll take a look at any of the questions after that. So what I have here is a cloud backup account. So this has already been provisioned. If you are a partner, as I mentioned, you'll come in through our partner portal. You'll select cloud backup under MSP, and then you'll go in and create an account for a customer. So in here, you'll just effectively give it an account name. Again, we'll use Amazon storage by default, or alternatively, you can use your own Azure storage. So in here, what you will do, and you will see that every partner gets a NFR account that they can use to start with. But effectively, once you've selected an account, you'll get a summary of any active seats that you're backing up across Office 365 and G Suite. But really the first thing, as I mentioned, is you may come into settings and add in any end users that need access to log in, and they'll obviously only see their account pretty much as what's showing on my screen. Once the user logs in, or you as the partner can come in here and add in the services. So G Suite will link to the G Suite Marketplace to install an app into your G Suite account. With Office 365, we just need some credentials. So we do support if you're using multi-factor authentication. I know it's now pretty much required across entire accounts. If you are doing that, we will need you to provision an app password, which will effectively allow us to back up that data with a secure password from Microsoft, and that will allow us to work within the multi-factor still enabled on that account. So we enable the account. That will be a username that's added in here. You'll then need to edit the SharePoint URL and give us the root of your SharePoint. Once you put that in, you will then be able to back up the OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. So these three services down here at the bottom are actually grayed out by default until you specify the SharePoint URL. So just bear that in mind. We've made this button a bit more obvious that you can edit that. It used to just be a little cog item, and some people weren't very clear that they needed to click it. Now, you'll need to enable us to use the administrative account as the site administrator for OneDrive. So when you do this, it does leverage global admin rights to do this. So just bear in mind, your admin user should at least initially have global admin rights so that you can do this, and that effectively allows us to back up all of the users' OneDrive data across the service. And you also have the option to automatically add new users. Now, this won't select the initial selection. You'll still need to do that, but any new users, shared mailboxes, resource mailboxes that are created will automatically be selected for you. And then these services, Calendar, Contact Mail, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, this is applicable to all users. So there's no cost difference to turn them on or off. So generally, you're going to enable all of them if you're using all those services, and it doesn't, it obviously doesn't affect your cost, and the storage is unlimited with us anyway. So from that perspective, you're then effectively coming in. We'll list 100 users per page. You can search for users. We can go in and select all on the page, or we can select all, all users. If we've got 2,000 of them, we can select them all. And we can back them up, and then you can go through at a later stage and start unselecting users you don't want to continue to back up. The cool thing is we don't charge for any user's data that we have backed up if you're not backing them up going forward. So for example, we back up everyone today, and then as people leave, we unselect them. We'll retain those backups for you at no cost, and we won't keep charging. So you'll always have the option to search, recover, once you've unselected a user, which is really cool. If I select on Carl here, we're going to use this one for a bit of a live demo today. We can see here the last backup across all my services was just before 11 a.m., so a couple of hours ago today, which is cool. I have the option to restore a whole user. Now, this isn't that common, but, for example, if I look at Garima is not selected for backup, I can come in here. We can see here that obviously the service was unavailable when it was last backing up, but I can still restore this user, and I can restore it to somebody else. So very flexible from this perspective. If I take a quick look, obviously restore into my Office 365 service, I'll start typing in a user, so it's going to do a live lookup on the active tenant. It's found an available user. Select a date, choose what I want to restore. Now, for example, if I unselect these options and just choose mail, just to explain to you what's going to happen, in the root of Carl's mailbox, it's going to create a folder, which I can call it whichever I want, and then it will restore all of the data in there. Now, the cool thing is it will keep all the directory structure, so it'll put in Garima's inbox, sent items, drafts, everything, calendar, contact, mail within that folder structure. So it's not going to put it in place. If someone restored a whole bunch of email into my inbox, I'd never know where it is or whose was what. So we put it into a folder. You can, of course, drag it out within your Outlook or webmail client to back to where you want it. But that makes it really simple and logical when you restore stuff, which is cool. So again, this is someone else. We can restore it into a new mailbox for that person or to, another user. It's very easy to do. But as I mentioned, the most popular thing is really going to be around the e-discovery and the searching. So in here, we can search really for anything. I'll search hello. It's obviously searching the whole tenant across everything. So it can take a couple of seconds. It's around 73 results. Obviously, that's quite small. But as I mentioned, all this indexing is done in our data center in advance. So you're not waiting for it to go and index all the backups. We're going to get results very quickly. We can obviously filter by date range. I could filter here to say only show me, because I've got G Suite and Office 365 in here. I could say just show me Office 365. I could say just show me emails. I could then filter by user. And as you start doing these filters, you can see the results are shortening down. So it's making it very easy to narrow down exactly what I'm looking for. And I might say, cool, there's the one in the inbox. I could select that. I could have, of course, say, look, this is a PO. These are all emails with that. I could do a bulk action to restore all matching query, and restore is going to put it back into someone's mailbox. Or I could export them where it'll actually zip them up and I can download that raw data. But if I look at a single email, click on this. Now, again, this could be confidential. So as an admin, I have the option to restore this without ever looking at the content of that data. Obviously, if I view it or I download it, that will get audited to say, effectively I had access to the data. But if I go ahead here and click restore, again, we'll choose a provider. So Office 365, I'll choose Mailbox Carl. I've logged in there in another tab in my browser, so I'm just going to select this one. And then here, as I mentioned, you can put in a name. So I might put 1:56 p.m. New Zealand time, 12th of December, 19. Okay, So we'll click Restore. It will take a second. It's now popped up here, Restore Started. If I jump over to my webmail, I can see here already, literally within a second, that folder's been created. It's put the inbox back folder in there because that's where the data was located, and then there's my email. So extremely quickly, I've got access to some critical data. Anyone can effectively do that that's been given access to log in. So very easy for, a business owner or a managing director or someone, that needs to search a whole tenant to log in, very quickly find something and restore it back into their client. So obviously that was just an example from email. One of the other cool things is the collection. So the collection is actually effectively the folder list, and we're doing some cool development on how we do more folder view level browsing. But effectively, based on the search results, these are all the folders where this type of data is residing, and this will go across SharePoint libraries, OneDrive folders, etc., where I can see cool, that it was in this folder here called sent items or which have you. So, we can use that type of thing to narrow down. Snapshot date is going to be the day that we snapshotted the data, so we only look at a specific day of content or a date range. So again, very easy to use these filters to narrow down what you're looking for quite quickly. Just finally, under reports, obviously we've got all of the backup reports again, run every 8 hours. If we take a look at the details of one of these reports, it's going to drill down into, again, Office 365 and G Suite that I'm backing up, effectively how long it took, when it started, when it ended. If we scroll down, we'll even get a user log at each service that is being backed up. It's telling me here some are unavailable. So this user obviously, probably their mailbox has been deleted, so it's saying that it's unavailable for backup. But we've got all that information and data there for all the backups. You've got access under the restore report to see any restores that have happened. So we'll see one here, 157. This is the restore I've just done. I restored an email. And here's one from yesterday that was restored. So we can again view details on that. This will also match up to the auditing. So if I jump down to the bottom here with auditing, this will actually go into a lot more detail. So not only did I do a restore, I did a bunch of searches, and it'll actually audit all of that as well. It will say, who was logged in to what account, and effectively, pretty much from here and above, 1:55 p.m. today, I did a couple of searches and filters before I did that restore. So all of that's logged. They can't be deleted or cleared. That will be across the customer or the partner doing anything in this account. And that, again, links up with the restore report. And then finally is the exporting. So some people say to me, Carl, how do I get this data out into a PST? And I sort of say, well, a PST is generally only going to represent one point in time. And we're doing a snapshot every 8 hours. Stuff's getting deleted, it's getting added. Which point do you want? And they're kind of a bit confused and puzzled. And I said, well, look, actually, we've got a better solution. You don't need to go to PST. Leave it in the cloud. We've indexed everything. It's all ready to search and recover. I mean, if you've got a PST file, it's a pretty ugly process to attach it into Outlook, particularly over a NAS or over a network. And then to search, that's quite horrible. So, leave it in the cloud. It's all there. If there's a chunk of data you need to get out quickly, we can do an export where we'll zip it all up for you, and you just download that, and you've got access to, the very specific set of data that you're looking for. Or worst case, you restore it back into someone's Outlook or into their mailbox, and they can grab it or export it from there or whatever they need to do. But, we're really seeing the benefit here around the e-discovery, the searching and indexing that we're doing that is, far superior to that sort of legacy thinking of, we need it in a PST file. And yeah, really, the experience of that's going to be a lot better. It's still very effective. We can bulk, get data out if we need to. And again, as I mentioned, because we're not charging for users that aren't being backed up anymore, effectively all that data can sit in here for as long as you need, and accessible for search and recoveries across your organization. So, look, that's really about the end of the demo at this point. Again, if there's anything further you'd like to see or discuss, now's the time to jump in and ask in the Q&A. I'll take a look at those questions in a minute. But otherwise, thank you very much for everyone attending. Again, this has been recorded, will be sent to all of you. And apologies at the start with my screen not sharing, so I'm glad that Peter called it out before I got too much further in. So I can just see a couple of questions. Yeah, okay, sorry. There's a few people pointing at it on the slide, so that's fine. Does Gmail, Dropbox, and other services have similar backup warnings? Having a list of them would be useful to show it's a normal thing you need to do with cloud services. Yes, obviously, I think it is ultimately, these clouds' primary purposes, to serve up data, and they will, have business continuity and high availability, but it's really around what your expectation is if someone deletes a file. I mean, you might have wanted to delete that file and then realize later, oh no, actually I want to get it back now. It doesn't mean that provider's got tools to allow you to do that search and recovery. Yes, if they have backup, they might be able to do it for you, but how long is that going to take? And how often do they have backups available? Are they frequent enough? So really it's, everyone's going to be different. As we support more and more of these services, yes, I agree with you. We need to be pointing out what the limitations are and what are the key things you're wanting to back up and protect. So yes, I think generally it is a concern across a lot of products. I mean, we've looked at Salesforce, we've looked at Box.com, we've looked at QuickBooks, I think it's Intuit Online. There's a lot of these types of SaaS services, and they do what they do very well. But what happens when something goes wrong? How long could it take them to get it back? Can they get it back? Do they have granular? Can you search? That kind of thing. And really that whole that self-portal, e-discovery, searching, and so on, is something that a lot of our partners and users really love. And giving you the control to do that yourself is really important. And as I mentioned, we used to run these services on-prem and we used to back them up. And just because we move them to the cloud, it doesn't mean we should just forget about backup or assume that it has been taken care of. And as I pointed out, there's a lot of scenarios where you can run into problems. Cool. Well, I think that's really the only question, other than a few people pointing out my slides are not up to date. So I do apologise again for my first time.
Carl, there's another question that's coming, I believe.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there's another one there. Any option to put recovered items straight back to their original location? So we don't do that because of a number of issues around concerns. Will it overwrite a file if it's already there? Or, again, if you restore something into my inbox from 2 years ago, it take me quite a while to find that. So we did a lot of sort of analyzing of what was the best way to handle a restore, and by putting a folder back into the root, it's very easy for someone to see, and because we put the folder structure there, you can effectively just drag and drop it back anyway. So yeah, at the moment, no, we don't have a way to put it back in line to where it was, but what we've sort of seen and discovered is that it probably causes more adverse risk and confusion than doing it separately. So we think what we're doing is the best way, but if you do think that there's something else we should think about, then let us know, and we can look at that as well. I will add, I did put some attachments into this webinar. I've got a StorageCraft Cloud Backup overview, and I've got a data sheet across our 365 and G Suite. So if anyone wants to grab those PDFs, you should have an attachment and links option to download. But again, that looks like the end of our questions. So I'm going to thank you again. Actually, sorry, it's one more question. What happens when Office 365 admin changes their login password? Okay, that's a really good question. The backups will start to fail. So you'll obviously get an alert if you've configured it to receive alerts to say, hey, we're unable to connect to your account. Now, the key thing to really think about there is how can we mitigate this problem? So one option is using or creating, a service account. It doesn't need to be a licensed user in Office 365. You can create a service account, call it StorageCraft Cloud Backup, and use that, set a secure password on that and use that. If you're using MFA, or I think even if you're not, you can create what's called an app password, and we've got a good how-to guide on this. And the app password is effectively separate to your actual login password, and I think that is unaffected if you do change your login password. So that allows us to securely log in and protect data, but it is a separate secure password for that account for our purpose than your actual user. So I think that would address that. But yes, if you're just using the standard admin account and you change it, it will prevent us from backing that up. So you just need to be aware of that. The cool thing is you'll get an alert saying the backup's failed. You can update the password and it will then continue on with the new backups. So maybe you miss 1 or 2 backups when we're unable to do them, but it will pick up that data once that's resolved. Cool. Okay, well, I'm going to end it there for today. Again, it's all been recorded. If you've got any questions, please reach out to our sales team. So sales@storagecraft.com.au or .co.nz. We'll get to our teams. And, we'll come back to you or leverage, myself as a sales engineer in Auckland, or my colleague Gerard and Jack in Australia can help you out as well with any questions. And effectively, we're here to help. There is just one last question I'll answer. Any timeline of cloud available in Asia? So we have got some of our Asian countries onboarded already. So I know Hong Kong and Singapore and Malaysia, I think, all have access. I think this question is specifically asking on Philippines, and that may not have been switched on yet. So the best thing is to reach out to our team there. So sales@storagecraft.com.sg, I think it might be just .sg for Singapore, is going to get to our team there, and they can sort of clarify that some more for you. But it'll, if we've got demand there, we can turn that on. There's no problem there relating to that. Okay, again, thank you everyone for attending, and appreciate your time on this webinar today.